Jesse, thank you. Right now, jury selection is going on in a retrial for Bill Cosby.
Fox 5 legal analyst Wendy Patrick has more in today's Inside the Law. So last year, the case ended in a hung jury. You're saying this is going to be entirely different.
Chris and Shali, this is going to be an entirely different case. And, you know, it's a redo in terms of a retrial, but that's about the only similarity. I mean, think about what's happened since last June when Mr. Cosby was not acquitted, but really lived to fight another day because the jurors couldn't decide. Under the cloud of the Me Too movement, the pendulum has swung in terms of victim credibility. But on the other hand, that's a double-edged sword because some feel, well, gosh, it's gone so far that there's a presumption of truthfulness. Why shouldn't there be? Jurors are divided on this very important issue, not to mention the fact that the judges' rulings are entirely different. Remember last year, Andrea Constant is the one charged victim. Only one other accuser was permitted to testify. This time, 5 other accusers. What does that mean? It's gone from a he said, she said to a patterns make the predator type of case.
Just real quickly, since you're talking numbers, as many as 50 women, though, have accused Cosby of something similar to this dating back to the 1960s.
That's right. And that's one of the things that the judge can't let, even if they wanted to, 50 accusers come into the courtroom. The prosecution wanted 19. They sort of settled at 5, but that's very significant. And this morning, there was another significant ruling where the judge basically is going to allow the defense to potentially bring in another witness that's designed to detract from the credibility of the charged victim, which is Andrea Constant. So things seem to be changing by the hour. One juror so far has been seated, and they're going to try to find the rest this week.
Let's talk about that. Just to have one juror picked, was that surprising to see?
Absolutely not.
You say not?
Picking a jury is a slow process, especially when you have a very high-profile defendant like Mr. Cosby, Jell-O pudding, America's dad. I mean, I'm probably dating myself, but I remember those days.
Yeah.
So it's actually, I was quite impressive that they've actually chosen one. Now this morning, they're going to have to call in reinforcements, but the danger is trying to find somebody that isn't so influenced one way or another by the Me Too movement that they can be fair both to the prosecution and to Mr. Cosby.
Well, you talk about his fame. His new attorney, Tom Mesereau, represented Michael Jackson in his child molestation case. What does bringing in a heavy hitter for Cosby do for him in his defense?
Well, it certainly helps him by bringing in, not that I wouldn't say it's that last year's team wasn't the A team, but it's just different. And it's a different time, it's a different climate, it's a very different social climate that they're now trying the case in. And Mesereau has a lot of experience representing somebody of Bill Cosby's caliber. Much has been made, by the way, about the fact that he's 80 years old. But for these victims, justice delayed is not justice denied. And while there's only one charged victim that was within the statute of limitations, all of the rest of the victims and the accusers are watching this very closely because a win here will be a win for them as well.
Given what you know and what you've been seeing and how things have changed over the past year, what do you think is going to happen this time around?
Well, I think it's a much better case, a much stronger case in terms of the 5 other uncharged accusers that are going to be allowed to testify. Because there can only be so many different modus operandis, MOs in a particular case before you begin to think maybe they're all telling the truth, especially because they didn't know each other beforehand and didn't have an opportunity to get together with their stories.
So there's a lot of smoke here with 50 accusers.
Far more smoke than there was last year, absolutely.
Now, last year, Cosby did not take the stand in his own defense. This year, do you think Mesereau pushed him to go on the witness stand?
Wow, that's a very important and provocative question that none of us will know the answer to until the moment that it actually happens.
Do you think it's going to happen, though?
I'd be surprised, but Mesereau, he's been around the block. He's probably going to wait and see how strong the prosecutor's case is before they make that very pivotal and potentially life-changing decision.
Man, all right. Wendy Patrick, as always, thank you.
Good stuff. Thank you for having me.
You make me want to go back to law school. You know, I quit law school. I quit law school.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah, I was in law school for like 2-3 months.
It's never too late.
If you were my teacher, I would have been an attorney today.
What kind of law would you practice?
I have no idea. Maybe it was she
Criminal law, of course.
Right? Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Wendy.
Still ahead for you here in Fox.